Now across live to our correspondent, Daniel Kijo. Good afternoon to you, Daniel. Thank you so very much for joining us there from Dar es Salaam. As a start, please give us the most sort of critical issues that were touched upon at the summit. We know, of course, that there is the key language announcement that was made about Kiswahili and, of course, the issue of industrialization.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Well, basically, the SADC member states are looking to continue using industrialization, like you touched on, as a tool to change lives, create jobs, and also improve the living conditions of the 327 million people who live in the region. Now, they have the SADC Industrialization Strategy 2015-2063 that maps out what each country should do and the sort of protocols that are needed to change the region. However, the growth towards industrialization is not satisfactory. Each country has been urged to sort of internally first create policies and harmonize policies that align with their general group decision to industrialize by improving energy, by improving infrastructure development like roads and bridges, etc., etc. Also, there are a lot of critical things that they touched on. They received reports from the outgoing chairperson and as well as the chairperson for the organ Troika. They agreed to follow up on the DRC issue. There also was a request from Burundi to join the SADC bloc, but after deliberation, the heads of state felt that Burundi is not ready because there are a few things that needed to be cleared. So the secretariat was advised to tell Burundi what needs to be done, and then at a later date, Burundi can reapply again. But as it stands, Burundi was not accepted into the SADC region because of those issues. There was also the issue of the Kingdom of Lesotho. They have been commended for the reforms that they've been doing, and they've been urged to hasten the process of making the law that will create a national reform authority so that the kingdom can stabilize. They also are looking to create a disaster preparedness mechanism because, as you know, the SADC region has been hit with natural disasters due to climate change in recent months. So they want to make sure that citizens can have a blanket or a buffer for whenever natural disasters would happen. They also talked on resource mobilization because they did an audit of the finances of the bloc, and it seems that contributions from countries were not satisfactory. So countries that had not contributed were urged to make sure that they put in their contributions because it is through contribution the secretariat can have the finances to carry out these projects. You touched on the issue of Zimbabwe. President Magufuli was really adamant in trying to convince, which he did. He convinced other members of SADC that Zimbabwe should have the sanctions lifted, and they will now work together through their embassies to convince the international community, being the US and the EU, that Zimbabwe has turned a new leaf and now it is ready to start rebuilding, despite the challenges that Zimbabwe is facing right now. Also, when it comes, since I'm on the topic of finances, there were agreements between the EU and SADC that were signed. About $46 million will be given to the SADC region for different projects, but all aimed at improving the business environment and increasing intra-regional trade. So those are, in a nutshell, some of the things that were touched on and shared.
All right. Well, before I let you go, Daniel, I'd like to actually zoom in on the election of Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa as the chairperson of SADC's regional organ of politics, defense and security. It has been met with some anger by some quarters, and I mean it is quite ironic, from where we're standing, given what's currently happening in Zimbabwe at the moment. Was that touched upon as well, given that it has been in the news that there is some unrest in Zimbabwe at the moment? And I think it's quite ironic that you mentioned that they've said that Zimbabwe can turn a new leaf when we're currently in the midst of problems in Zimbabwe.
That is very true. I'm sure there are perceptions that the unrest may not be a good indicator that he can do his job in his new appointment. However, President Magufuli, as a new chair, said all heads of state are with him and are going to support Zimbabwe in the new rebuilding, and that the country still needs a bit of support to balance and stabilize. And riots obviously are not good things to see, and nobody wants citizens to be unhappy. But it seems that the heads of state are willing to give the president of Zimbabwe a chance to sort of stabilize the country. So I think it's a wait and see, and we'll see exactly how things play out.
All right. Thank you very much for that. That's Daniel Kijo speaking to us from Tanzania, where, of course, the SADC Heads of State Summit has just wrapped up.